Theory time.
Tales from the Pizzaplex Book 1, Lally's Game, came out recently, and it was a really interesting book. 3 out of the 4 stories were really interesting: Frailty, Lally's Game, and the epilogue. Under Construction is something else entirely, and I have no idea what it's trying to tell us, if anything, but all of the 3 other stories are all really interesting, and while reading them, I had some interesting ideas. I recommend you watch my summaries for the stories before you watch this video, because I talked a bit about theories in the summaries, well, except the epilogue, but you should still watch the summaries if you don't know what happens in the story. I'm going to expand on a theory or two that I talked in my summary videos, but for the ones I don't, I still think they're interesting theories, and that you guys will find the summaries worth watching for my thoughts on the stories. So, I hope you guys enjoy. This video will mostly be about Frailty, so let's get started. Let's get started with the biggest reason I wanted to make this video. It's what's in the title, and I just wanted to get it out of the way. Does this book confirm Stitchline games? Since before the book came out and leaks started flooding Discord, people have been saying that Frailty and the epilogue confirm Stitchline games. Hell, people in the Reddit Discord were talking about my videos and saying I was stupid to not believe Stitchline games, especially when someone asked if I'd known about the epilogue. So going in, I was nervous that I might be convinced of Stitchline games, but after reading it, do I believe it? To put it simply, no. The reason Frailty doesn't prove Stitchline games is because all it does is prove that Eleanor, or some variation of her, exists in the game timeline. This doesn't prove anything though, because I already believe she was in the games. Or again, I believe some variation of her did exist in the games, and I still do. But in the games, I also believe that her character, what she is different to how it is in the books, and I also believe her to be Patient 46. A lot adds up if that's the case, and there's not very many other options for Patient 46 besides a new character. While I'm completely open to the possibility of Patient 46 being a new character, it doesn't make much sense due to her voice being hidden, seeming to imply that it's someone we know, whose voice we would recognize, and it's very possible that it is Baby. It can't be Vanny because we know Vanessa and Vanny are the same person, and there's a distinct point where Vanessa leaves town for work and the rest of the tapes are of Patient 46. We never hear Vanessa again.
I understand you'll be transferring to a different location soon. I'll be sorry to see you go. I think we've been making progress, don't you?
I'm needed somewhere else now. Thank you.
Meaning Patient 71 and 46 are not the same person. And we know Patient 46 isn't Gregory because the subtitles in other languages use female pronouns for Patient 46. Some people now believe that Jessica is Patient 46, Jessica from Frailty, but to me that just doesn't add up. Jessica is a character trying to atone for past mistakes, and some people believe that to be killing therapists as Patient 46, but it's made clear that Jessica's life went to shit when she made one bad choice, which is more likely making a wish for Eleanor to fulfill. Killing multiple therapists and clearly having malicious intent does not fit Jessica's character. That's not one mistake, that's a complete change in her character. Not to mention, why would there be a hidden CD player that you insert hidden discs into, hidden in a hidden room, to give us unnecessary expansion on a character who appears as the main character in the first Tales from the Pizzaplex story, only to literally die in that same story? That makes no sense. Eleanor is also implied to be in the games from the background of the Vanny boss fight in Fury's Rage, where we see Eleanor in a tank. The last one seemed like it could have been the actual mall. And I think that's possible. Is that Baby in there? What is that? That's interesting. So, Frailty doesn't prove anything, it just confirms something that was already likely. But what about the epilogue? People seem to think that the epilogue also confirms Stitchline games. Even Duckman, someone who hated Stitchline games almost as much as I do, switched to believing Stitchline games only from reading this epilogue. But I really don't have any idea why. Literally not a single thing in this epilogue confirms or even implies Stitchline games. Nothing in the entire epilogue connects to the Stitchline in any way, literally at all. I seriously have no idea why people think this epilogue confirms it, because it really doesn't do anything to suggest that the Stitchline is in the games at any point in the epilogue. So now with that out of the way, let's talk about what else Frailty actually implies, mostly with expansion on the abilities of Remnant. For whatever reason, a lot of people still misunderstand what Remnant is. Remnant isn't a spiritual energy, though FNaF AR might have you think that, but in the final Fazbear Fights epilogue, Talbert explains that Remnant is not an energy, but haunted metal. And you may ask why Remnant is an energy in FNaF AR, and there's 2 explanations for that. First, it's very possible that that's just energy wafting off the actual Remnant metal. I think that makes the most sense, And it makes sense because we get remnant from the animatronics, meaning, well, obviously, there's remnant inside them. Where that remnant comes from is unclear, but it would make sense that the remnant we collect is the energy that wafts off the animatronics. I mean, we see the remnant just spawns, and if it's not from the animatronics, who is it from? If it wasn't from the animatronics, let's be honest, it would probably just be non-canon. And the other explanation is logical too. If you've been in science class, you've most definitely learned about the different states of matter. Talbot claims to have made the heart-shaped pendant out of remnant. That means remnant can be in the form of a solid. In the fourth closet and sister location, the remnant in the fun times are the endoskeletons of the FNaF 1 animatronics that were melted together. In the final epilogue, remnant is a liquid. This means that remnant can also exist in a liquid form. It's also possible that remnant has to be melted in order to be classified as remnant. If that weren't the case, wouldn't that mean every single endoskeleton in the entire series that is possessed by a spirit classifies as remnant? Maybe, but I don't really know. I feel like that doesn't really make that much sense. But what I do know is that remnant can only be injected while in a liquid form, so that's when it matters the most. But it can still keep you alive while in a solid form, which we know from the pendant. But when it comes to being injected, it has to be a liquid, of course. So if remnant can be in the form of both metal and liquid, which basically anything can, it's clear that it can obviously be in a gas form as well, and that could be what we see in FNaF AR. And I have a feeling some people are going to say that to be turned into a gas, it has to be heated to really high temperatures, and that would just burn away the remnant. But that's not the case, because in FNaF 6, it's not stated in the Insanity ending that remnant burns in fire, it's said that fire might neutralize the effects. All that means is that, suppose William was alive and was being kept alive by remnant, the remnant wouldn't keep him alive anymore, but the remnant itself would still exist. Not to mention it actually says it might neutralize the effects, not that it 100% will, so I think it's clear that all along, Henry was just wrong. Hey, that rhymes. Anyway, despite its properties basically being explained to us many times, there's still a decent amount we don't know about remnant, or that we didn't know before frailty. As I said, we know the heart-shaped pendants are made out of remnant, and we know remnant can heal people. In sister location, we see 6 eyes on Ennard in the sewer, despite Ennard only actually having 4, or maybe 5. We also see that Mike's eyes are missing. So this implies that Ennard took either one of Mike's eyes or both of them, but given that Mike's eyes are blue and there's 2 blue eyes in the sewer, Funtime Freddy has blue eyes, but Ennard only has 1 eye from each animatronic. Funtime Foxy is the yellow one, Ballora is the pink one, Baby is the green one, but there also seems to be another blue one and a black one. The black one I don't really have an answer to, but the second blue one might actually be from Mike. Basically what I'm saying is that Mike lost his eyes, but then they grew back soon after, which we see in the same cutscene. This shows that remnant can regenerate you. Another thing that shows this is the fact that Scott himself confirmed that the scooper scooped out Mike's skeleton, while it also injected him with remnant, since that's the main function of remnant. I mean the scooper, sorry. So if Mike's body has nothing holding up his organs and skin, if his body's just skin and organs with no solid bones inside, that is if he even has any organs after being scooped is kind of unclear. But either way, how in the hell could he possibly stand up? Because his organs grew back, or his bones grew back. Remnant can regenerate you, and the description of Remnant in the Final Phasma Frights epilogue also supports this, as it states that Remnant can make people who are lost almost real again. I didn't realize before exactly what this meant. I thought it was just saying that it can regenerate people who are near death, but what Frailty shows is that this quote from the epilogue actually means more than we thought. Not only can Remnant regenerate you from injuries, like fixing broken bones or regenerating your eyeballs, but he can also literally bring dead people back to life. At the beginning of the story, a kid was in a car accident, and EMTs tried to revive the kid, but they couldn't. The kid dies. He had already been dead, they were just trying to restart his heart, but they gave up because they'd been trying for too long, but to no avail. They thought he was gone. Which he was. They went to explain to the officer that they lost the kid, but then Jessica shows up with a knife and the pendant, scraping off pieces of the remnant pendant, and the kid was brought back to life. What this confirms is that revival is possible to take place canonically. The question is, though, has it happened outside of this kid? There are 2 moments in the series where it's heavily debated whether or not characters have been killed and revived: Sister Location and the 4th Closet. But interestingly enough, in both cases, the remnant is actually what's killing them. See, the reason Carlton is dying in the 4th Closet is because William, as a test on the true abilities of remnant, injects Carlton with remnant. The reason this is killing him is because William injected remnant into Carlton's heart, which William says himself was too direct. As for why Remnant is killing Michael, that's a bit more complicated to explain. In the Insanity ending of FNaF 6, which along with the fourth closet is where we get most of our information on Remnant, the Scoopers claim to contain the Remnant reservoir. Obviously a reservoir is like the source of something, and the source of the Funtime's Remnant is the conglomeration of all the FNaF 1 characters' endoskeletons still inhabited by the original missing kids. A lot of people still don't believe this, but Henry in both the Insanity ending and Canon ending, Candy Cadet stories, and the fourth closet all make it clear that this is true. Henry literally blatantly states that it's true, so it's not really a theory, and Henry flat out confirms it. What I'm trying to say is that it seems like the Remnant amalgamation is actually inside the Scooper. And since the Scooper is stated to be a Remnant injector, it seems like the Scooper is what was used to inject the Remnant into the Funtimes. But the animatronics obviously are a lot bigger than any actual human would be, so the quantity of Remnant in the Funtimes would be a lot if that same amount was injected into a human being. Again, in the Insanity ending, it's stated that overusage or overexposure would negate the effects of Remnant. This implies that Michael is actually dying because the quantity of Remnant inside him was too high to the point where the effects were negated. There would have been too much in his blood, and that would result in the same problem Carlton had. The Remnant would make it to his heart, and with the amount of Remnant in him, it would start to kill him. Obviously, Ennard is also responsible, but if the Remnant was working, then Ennard being inside his body wouldn't be an issue. In both scenarios, it seems like the missing children are the ones that save Carlton and Mike, which is probably why it starts working again. See, the spears are trapped within the Remnant, but within it, they're kind of free to do whatever they want. And Michael in the fourth closet saves Carlton by leaving a piece of Remnant inside him, so that he will stay alive, because Michael is keeping him alive. In the case of Michael Afton, though, given that what happens to Carlton is very similar to what happens to Michael, it's very possible that after Ennard leaves his body, Michael interacts with the missing children the same way Carlton does, helping put the pieces of their spirits back together, to which they respond by saving his life, keeping him alive. But all this raises the question of if these two actually died and got revived, or if they were just dying and were kept alive. There isn't really a clear indication in either scenario that they actually fully died. The only indication comes from Michael's rotting body. But given that his body parts were taken out and there is a foreign entity inside his body controlling him, meaning Michael isn't in control of his own body, it would make sense if his brain just thought he was dead. Another thing to point out is that in Room for One More, Stanley's body begins to rot too because of the mini arenas being inside his body. Why this is happening is unclear, but it could possibly... What did I just say? Possibly. I meant possibly be partially due to his body being bruised. To anyone who doesn't know, a bruise is basically when blood is right up against your skin. Bruises can be a little bit grayish, but more serious ones can become purple. And we see this in Step Closer too, with a character who is very clearly meant to be a Michael parallel, getting a bruise where his whole hand turns purple. It's very possible that Michael's body isn't entirely rotting, but is also turning purple from his blood and the organs he has left being pushed up against his skin by the foreign tangle of wires living inside his body. While I don't believe this to be entirely the case, it does make a certain amount of sense. It could also be a combination of both bruising and rotting, though. I think that's the most likely option, that is a combination. So basically, there's nothing really suggesting that Mike has to be dead. After all, Stanley in Room for One More is very much alive, and I mean until the ending. And so is Mott from Sea Bonnies, but that situation is really different, though it does very clearly parallel the incident with Ennard, given that the older brother turns purple when something is inside him. Yeah, I think that's pretty clear. But the point is that some stuff seems to point more toward Michael actually still being alive, but there's also something that happens in both cases that very much seems to tell us that neither Carlton nor Mike actually died. Before Michael Brooks gave a piece of Remnant, or maybe a piece of his soul but contained within Remnant, to Carlton at first rejects it because it's a part of Michael, but Michael insists. Why? Because Michael says, and I quote, "You'll die without it." This basically means that Carlton hasn't died yet, but he will die. And the same thing happens with Michael. After Ennard leaves Michael's body, we hear Baby's voice saying, "You won't die."
You won't die. 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 You won't die.
It's kind of unclear whether this is her reassuring him or questioning why he won't die, but either way this is basically saying, you haven't died yet, and you won't. So what's Frailty trying to say? Is it trying to say that despite us not actually seeing it happen previously, Remnant actually does have the ability to revive? I think so, but maybe there was a revival that we all missed, or that was only vaguely hinted at that we just haven't found yet.
And no, I'm not talking about BV-FIP.
But that's all I wanted to talk about for this video. I was originally going to talk about my theories on the epilogue in this video, but I feel like the video would be too long if I did. So I'm going to save that for another video specifically dedicated to the epilogue and my theories about it. But what do you guys think? Do you agree with my theory? Let me know in the comments what you guys think of these tale stories and what you think they're trying to tell us if you have any ideas that I haven't brought up. As I said, stay tuned for my future theory where I'm going to specifically talk about the epilogue, but I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please do leave a like and subscribe if you want to. Now, if you'll excuse me, I finished writing the script for this video at 4:52 a.m., so I really need to get some sleep, or at least I did when I was writing this. Now it's actually 8:56 p.m. while I'm recording this, so it's not really relevant. I'm just letting you know because it's funny. But anyways, bye guys.